By Dino Grandoni, September 5 at 8:51 a.m. The Lightbulb President Trump's Supreme Court nominee, Brett M. Kavanaugh, listens to senators make their opening statements during his confirmation hearing in the Senate Judiciary Committee on Tuesday. Photo by Melina Marr, The Washington Post. If the first day of Brett M. Kavanaugh's hearing in the Senate is any indication, Democratic senators are ready to press President Trump's Supreme Court nominee about his views on a number of high-profile cases on things like abortion rights and gun control. So far, environmental issues have taken a backseat to those topics. But with several days of testimony from Kavanaugh still ahead of him before the Senate Judiciary Committee, Democrats laid the groundwork for grilling the judge about how much power he thinks the executive branch should have when writing rules meant to stop pollution. Throughout his time on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia, Kavanaugh tended to take an industry-friendly approach to interpreting environmental law. Importantly, Kavanaugh only wants to give the government more authority to regulate businesses when Congress clearly states it wants it to be that way. With that judicial philosophy, according to Democrat Sheldon Whitehouse of Rhode Island, Kavanaugh is exactly the sort of Supreme Court justice that industry wants. Lots of big Republican influencers are polluters who like to pollute for free, Whitehouse told Kavanaugh during the hearing. Big polluters, clearly, have big expectations for you on their deregulatory effort. Whitehouse's office declined to say what the senator will ask Kavanaugh about this week. But in a statement by email, the senator noted that Democrats have not had the chance to review a vast number of documents from the nominee's time working as a staffer in George W. Bush's White House. We may never know which polluters are paying for a multi-million-dollar ad campaign to pave the way for his confirmation, Whitehouse wrote in the email to the Energy 202. We do know that for heavy-spending polluters, tearing down protections for our environment is a big payback, and all of Kavanaugh's signaling is that he's there to help. Of course, this is only one point of view from a Democrat opposed to Kavanaugh's nomination. The judge presented himself during the hearing as an impartial jurist who rules sometimes for environmentalists and sometimes for coal miners. And Republicans on the committee defended Kavanaugh by describing him as a judge who simply follows the letter of the law. Contrary to the onion-like smears that we hear outside, Judge Kavanaugh doesn't hate women and children. Judge Kavanaugh doesn't lust after dirty water and stinky air, said Sen. Ben Sass, Arneb. No, looking at his record, it seems to me that what he actually dislikes are legislators that are too lazy and too risk-averse to do our actual jobs. Since Congress has passed few major environmental laws since the 1970s, presidents have had to use those old statutes to address new challenges such as global warming. That legislative stalemate between Republicans and Democrats has given the courts an increasingly critical role in determining how far those laws reach. Expect Democrats to highlight the significance of Kavanaugh's pro-business approach when it comes to climate change. Kavanaugh has held that the Environmental Protection Agency does not have the authority under the Clean Air Act to compel companies to curb the emission of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases. That put him at odds with former President Obama's administration, which did interpret the law that way and issued carbon emissions rules for coal-fired power plants before the Supreme Court halted their enforcement. Last year, for example, Kavanaugh's court ruled against an Obama-era EPA program compelling manufacturers to phase out a particularly potent type of greenhouse gas called hydrofluorocarbons. However much we might sympathize or agree with EPA's policy objectives, Kavanaugh wrote, EPA may act only within the boundaries of its statutory authority. Another topic Kavanaugh may be pressed on is his insistence the EPA consider the financial impact of its actions. When dissenting in a 2-1 decision upholding the EPA's decision to block a permit for a coal mine in West Virginia due to potential harm to aquatic life, he wrote the agency never considered the costs to humans. You are reading the Energy 202, our must-read tip sheet on energy and the environment. Not a regular subscriber? Sign up now. PowerPlay's Department of Homeland Security personnel deliver supplies to Santa Ana community residents in the aftermath of Hurricane Maria in Guayama, Puerto Rico. AP photo Carlos Tuesday, overwhelmed and exhausted. A new audit report from the Government Accountability Office found the Federal Emergency Management Agency was overwhelmed last year by the spate of major hurricanes and wildfires, and while it carried out its duties, its resources were exhausted once Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico. They were completely overwhelmed from a workforce standpoint, audit leader and GAO director for emergency management issues Chris Curry told reporters on a Tuesday call, according to the Post's Joel Achenbach and Erlisar Hernandez. Once Maria hit, their staff resources were pretty exhausted. Their other commodities and resources were exhausted. Some key findings: some FEMA staff were not physically able to handle the extreme or austere environment of the territories, which detracted from mission needs when responding to hurricane recovery in Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. And at one point last October, more than half, 54%, of FEMA staff deployed to tasks for which they were not qualified according to the agency's standards. Many staffers did not speak Spanish and could not speak with local residents or translate documents. Former Environmental Protection Agency Administrator Scott Pruitt. AP photo Andrew Harnick. Pruitt's protection not justified. A report from the EPA's Inspector General found the agency did not properly assess security threats when it established around-the-clock protective detail for former Administrator Scott Pruitt, according to the Post's Brady Dennis and Juliette Eilprin. The report concluded that the decision represents an inefficient use of agency resources, and the agency was not justified in spending nearly $3.5 million on Pruitt's security. Even with Pruitt having hit the exits, the agency disputed the notion that it lacked justification for the security detail, responding to the Internal Watchdog's report. The office also announced Tuesday that it will begin a review of testing of glider vehicles conducted at the agency's vehicle labs following 2 congressional requests. The Inspector General plans to examine the selection, acquisition and testing of glider vehicles at the EPA's National Vehicle and Fuel Emissions Laboratory, as well as the EPA's planning for this testing, according to a memo. Congressional Republicans were among those who raised concerns about those tests. Physicist William Happer arrives for a meeting with President-elect Donald Trump at Trump Tower in New York in 2017. EPA Albin Lower Jones pool. Trump picks physicist who dismisses climate change to join NSC. Trump will name William Happer, an atomic physicist from Princeton who has publicly questioned the mainstream consensus about climate change, to join the National Security Council as an advisor on emerging technologies, CNN reports. Happer, who served in the Energy Department under President George H.W. Bush, told CNN last year that carbon dioxide is not a pollutant and that the temperature is not rising nearly as fast as the alarmist computer models predicted. Thermometer: A Cal Fire air tanker makes a drop on a wildfire at sunset as the pilot protects structures on the Hawkeye Ranch above Geyserville, California. Ken Porter Press Democrat AP, California is burning, and the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection is struggling to keep up in terms of staffing. Cal Fire leaders say they cannot remember having so many aircraft grounded during peak fire months because of staffing shortages, the Sacramento Bee reports. They can call on private companies and federal aircraft to fill in during an emergency, but they acknowledge that the department's pilot shortfall is straining the fleet. Cal Fire Chief of Flight Operations Dennis Brown predicts 40 more pilots will be needed in the coming years to alleviate the shortage, per the report. Mitchell Nugent paddles aboard toward